Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wings of Hope podcast. I'm Kevin Skeens, and I'm joined today with the founder of Casa Hogar Los Angelitos, Nancy Nystrom.
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here this morning.
Yes. Well, Nancy, I played a little trick on you today.
I know, probably.
Because I've just found over the years the stories and the things that you tell that are so life impactful. I think you do a better job when I don't prepare you and I just hit you out of left field. So are you ready for some stuff today you're not expecting?
Oh dear. Well, I will try.
Oh, if you were here, I think you'd be kicking me under the table right now.
No, Kevin, I'd never kick you. Well, maybe I might.
Yes. Well, Nancy, I just wanted to jump right in. One of the most magical things Casa Hogar offers is the vision trips to Casa Hogar. At what point in the 30-year history of Casa Hogar did you allow groups from the United States or Canada to come down and visit Casa Hogar?
Kevin, we had a group come down in 1996. We had just opened, and it was a church group that came down and very impactful. So we've been doing this for quite a while and have found it to be very, very beneficial for everyone involved. And then I remember, I think you came down in 2001 or something like that, 2002 with a group. And I think it might have changed your life. I remember we were stuck with two flat tires, right? It's kind of like a boom, boom kind of thing in that riverbed. So that's that was an experience that you'll probably never forget. Then
Yeah.
we had to send off and try and get somebody to help us with tires and changes, and so it was quite an experience for you.
Yes.
I'd like to know, Kevin. I mean, I've been doing this now since 1996, not every year, but for the most part, we've had vision trips, people coming down, Rotary churches, different individuals and groups. So I'd like for you to tell me and everyone else how it changed your life, because I think it changed your life as well.
Well, I would love to do that, but I have a life-changing moment going back to the time that you just referred to, where we were in a dry riverbed with two flat tires. But the thing I remember most about that day is one of the things I love about Casa Hogar is Casa Hogar gives back to those in need. And on that particular day, we had loaded up some of our visitors, some kids from Casa Hogar, and we were taking supplies into, I think it was called La Lima, which is a very poor village.
Right. I said it
And
there.
I remember we pulled up, and I'd never seen anything like it. I remember, I can still see it clear as day. A woman with a big smile on her face was sweeping the dirt floor in her house, because you could kind of see into the house. There was no door.
Mm-hmm.
And we came up and we were engaging the crowd, and this little child came running up to you, and I could see the lice like jumping off this kid's hair. And this kid came up to you, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm so glad this kid didn't come up to me, because I was, pretty frightened by that situation. But I'll never forget, Nancy, you embraced that kid with love and you squeezed that kid. And I think that was one of the most profound moments that I had in my Casa Hogar early years, was just seeing the unconditional love, that you personally were showing this child.
Wow, Kevin, that is something that I feel it's very important with all of these children and the adults as well, to give that sense of acceptance and love, because some of those little kids that come up, I know that they have lice. I know they have whatever other situations, but I just cannot reject and move away. What I do, I go back home that evening, as well as many other evenings, and wash my hair with lice shampoo. But I'm not going to reject that child, because I know, God's love for every child, whether they have lice or not. And sometimes those like that are in the greatest need of being accepted and of loving them.
Well, Nancy, what would you say the unconditional love, that you exemplify, and that all the teachers and everyone involved at Casa Hogar has for these children, that unconditional love? What role do you see unconditional love playing in the healing of these young children?
Oh, Kevin, it's just like any family. When you're in a family, the thing that helps you to become or to be healthy in your own emotional life is to feel that you are accepted for yourself and who you are and as you are. And I think that in the Casa Hogar, that is a theme that is played throughout, because and that's the way I think my heart feels. I know when I was growing up, I never really totally felt accepted for who I was. And that always left a little bit of a pain or a hole, in my heart. But when I look at these kids, some of them, they have snotty noses, they're dirty, they've been through all kinds of things. It makes me want to cry just thinking about it. And just to be able to hug them and to look at them and to see them for who they are inside, and just to give them that unconditional acceptance. Maybe we can't always feel like, well, we just love this child. Maybe we do, maybe we don't, but we can give them that unconditional acceptance, because I think this is something that is one of the most important
Yeah.
things in all of our lives, in every area of our life, even
Hmm.
in other areas, other levels, relationships, just to accept that friend, to accept that person, who they are and as they are. Um,
Yeah. Well,
so
sometimes when a child comes into Casa Hogar, and let's say this is a child that's come from a pretty rough background, maybe some abuse, or maybe they've seen some horrific things happen. Do you ever find that children are almost afraid of
oh,
being held, of being hugged? Like, talk a little bit about what you've
yeah.
seen and maybe how love broke down that barrier.
Yeah, it's very, very, we have to be very, very careful, and I'm very careful. When a child comes in, we can't be, we have to just take it a little bit at a time, because if they've been physically or sexually or even emotionally abused, but mostly physical and sexual abuse, many times they go one way or the other. They just want to hug you all of the time, because they're accustomed to that, or they don't want any touch. Don't touch me. They'll move away. They don't want to be touched. They don't want to be held. So little by little, we have to kind of just first of all let them know that we care and that we accept them. And one of the first things that we do at the Casa Hogar when a child comes in is to try and give them that feeling that, you know, God loves you just as you are, and He sees your heart, and He knows you, and we love you. I love you. I accept you, and just to touch them, sometimes just to touch them on the shoulder, or their head, or to say something nice about them that is true, and that is that you really mean, and that they know that you're being sincere, starts to break down that feeling of where they feel like they have to protect
Yeah.
themselves from you. I know this sounds kind of maybe maybe silly, but there's a little girl that came into the Casa Hogar. She's been in there now only about 2 months at this point. She had been there maybe 1 week, 10 days. She was very standoffish. She had a problem. I forget what we call it.
Left palate.
Yeah, something that, made her lips kind of deformed. And, and she was 12, 13 years old, which is a very vulnerable age, and to
Yeah.
feel those things. And so we were, I was introduced to her, and I was just trying to talk to her a little bit. And I said, you have like ojos de Dios. Well, we were talking about some of the other kids, because I have this thing. Some of the kids that come in from Jalisco, they have these beautiful eyes and eyelashes, and I call them ojos, ojos de. Oh dear, now I just lost it. But it's Talaki. They're from this area, and they're just magical. And so we were talking a little bit about that, and I looked at her and I said, you have ojos de Dios, eyes of God. And she said, really? Like that. And I said, yes, they're just, they are like God, the eyes of God. They're so beautiful. And they're not that they were beautiful, but I felt that something, there was something about her eyes and the way she was looking. And I just wanted to be able to tell something. And she, from that point on, just saying that, made a difference in the way that she responded, because I noticed something about her, and it was true, and it was honest, and it made her feel like I really saw her. I
Yeah.
think that's what makes the difference. Ojos de Tapatíos, that's the
Okay.
other name.
Well, and I think a lot of people don't understand, but because of all the visits that I have been on and taking groups of athletes to Casa Hogar, one of the things that really struck me are these kids that come in. They're not just kids that are down on their luck. These are kids that, according to society, don't matter.
Yeah.
If your mom is a prostitute or if you're a street kid, you don't matter.
No.
And I think a lot of times these kids are disregarded and treated that way. So for Casa Hogar to take a kid that doesn't matter on the outside and to give them love and even make a compliment like you're so good about doing about their eyes or whatever it is about them that's beautiful, I've noticed these kids really latch onto that. And that's when you can get a lot of true healing, is when little by little, these nuggets of believing in themselves and seeing the beauty that you see in them is radically changing lives.
Yeah, that's really, really important. That's true. Very true in the Casa Hogar with these kids, especially. And again, Kevin, it's true in life in general. Children that are out here are people that, are angry or have these, if you can just notice something and say, you really have a nice smile. I really like the way you present yourself, or whatever it might be that makes them feel like you're really seeing them and
Yeah.
that they're special. And the kids at the Casa Hogar, for me, they are all very special. Some of them have learning disabilities. Some of them are extremely bright. I mean, talented. They come in without having any kind of education or experience, and then you begin to work with them and teach them, and all of a sudden you see this shining light. It's like, oh my goodness, and it was there all along, but no one saw it. And you're right, they are cast away. They are children. They are children that are thrown away. There's an article that was written a number of years, well, when we first began, they were talking about, what we were doing, and they were talking about children of the street. And what they said was, yes, we call them children of the street, but the street did not birth them. Society did. And society has a responsibility to come in and to care for them and to treat them in a way that lets them know that they are part of society. Because many times these kids come in and they don't feel they have any value at all. They're like the dirt, and other people will look at them that way also.
Yeah.
Because they're from poverty, they're indigenous, or they are uneducated, or they're victims of prostitution or whatever it might be. So we cast them aside. We don't want any part of them. And so that's how Casa Hogar Los Angelitos is different. Some of these kids are kids that would be victims of very vulnerable of trafficking, because children and young people that are vulnerable, that come from poverty, that come from other negative situations, crime, etc., they are the number one victim of trafficking. So and that's another thing that, to some extent, that they're afraid of when they first come into the Casa Hogar. Some of them come in as like a tremendous relief, and it's wonderful, a new world. And some of them come in afraid that something's going to happen to them.
Yeah.
Because that is a real problem and a real fear. And so they've had others. I talked to a little boy in front of a kiosk, and he was begging, and I gave him some food, and I said, well, where do you live? And talked to him a little bit about his family, or tried to. And I said, you have a family? He said, well, I had a sister. And I said, well, where is she? What happened? He said, she's disappeared, which is an expression that they use when they've been trafficked. And so, I invited him to come into the Casa Hogar, but they're afraid. They're afraid to go. People many times are afraid because they're so vulnerable. And anyway, for me, it's a very heartbreaking situation down there, for the children especially.
Yeah. Yes. Well, now to answer your question, I had gone down on several visits, and then I decided I really wanted to share the magic of Casa Hogar with others. So I started bringing groups of volleyball players down there. And it was amazing how the experience was changing the lives of these girls from the United States. You know, for them to see these kids that had come from these horrific backgrounds, but yet to see how happy they were, how productive they were, it was so eye-opening that a lot of these girls, it radically changed their lives. I remember one girl, when she came back from the Casa Hogar trip, she went through her closet and she decided to donate probably 3/4 of all of her clothes and started doing service work. And that's a girl that ended up going into social work in college. And it was just amazing to see how the Casa Hogar trip radically transformed her life. And that's just one story of many. But what did you see the impact being of some of these church groups and certainly the athletes that were coming down there on the Casa Hogar kids?
Well, when somebody pays attention to you, that gives you an entirely different feeling. And so having these groups come down, whether it's a group from a church or whether it's a volleyball girls or whether it's, Rotary or whatever it might be, they come and they spend time with these kids. They may not even do that much as well as far as, construction or projects or things like that. But spending the time with these kids, it's amazing how that gives something very, very special to these kids. Every one of them feels like, well, there's somebody that cares about me. There's a friend. I have a friend over here that cares about me. And even if they never see that person again, they remember.
Yeah.
Our kids remember everyone that comes down. If they were there, you ask them and they'll say, oh yeah, well, and they'll say the name and they will ask, or they'll say, well, when are they coming back? Because it makes it makes an emotional difference to our kids. I'd like to ask you, Kevin, how do you feel like, because I saw you on several different occasions having some experiences, I think with, things that just all of a sudden, tears come to your eyes and you see these girls that come down, and some of them had problems at home, and these are kids that you were able to bring down and to help them actually to change their lives. You brought them for a different reason. I think you brought them for training, right? What was your goal when you brought the girls down, the different groups, volleyball groups?
Well, I think, yeah, the first few trips we did were just exploratory, where we came down and we did the service learning. But then I, took several trips to just kind of study what is going on at Casa Hogar. What's the programming that they're using with these kids that are helping them to heal and to become productive members of society when they were castaways. So I started creating a curriculum. So when we would come down and we would go to Casa Hogar and interact with the kids, at night we would go back and we would do what I was calling the Shatter Expectations Leadership Program. And we were just using examples from the children at Casa Hogar and the things that they had overcome. And we were kind of breaking it down and going through a lot of bonding and a lot of sharing. So these girls were more open to impacting the lives of those around them. So in other words, they would go to Casa Hogar. We would put some intentional learning when we were down there from a leadership standpoint. Then they would come back to the United States. And it was like a spiderweb effect. One girl coming back to her friend group that had a life-changing experience, that starts rubbing off on her friend group. And those were some of the best emails that I ever received from parents, were that I remember one parent said, my daughter came back from the Casa Hogar trip a different child, and it's affected our entire family. We are now doing volunteer work as a family in honor of her trip to Casa Hogar. So, there's just so many stories, but I think for me, it was putting some intentionality behind the leadership training that we were doing with the girls from the United States.
Kevin, why do you think that their visit to the Casa Hogar would change them that much? Yes, you did some training, and yes, there was some interaction. What really affected them? What really made that difference for the girls and for you?
I think probably the number one difference was that girls, they were filled with more gratitude. When they would see what these children had been through, and yet they were happy and they were laughing and they were playing, and they had very little, honestly, very few possessions, but they had a happiness and a joy that some of my girls were lacking. And I think that was the biggest change that I would see, is these girls started becoming more thankful for what they had, thankful for their mom and dad. I remember one girl, she jumped in the car after the Casa Hogar trip, and the mom said she just burst into tears and started apologizing for what a rotten teenager she had been behavior-wise.
Wow.
And the mom said it was just amazing how that trip opened her heart to being more thankful in her life. Because I think if we have a perspective of gratitude, it really does have a way of enhancing your entire life. And I think the kids at Casa Hogar are a perfect example of that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And they are, for the most part, every one of them grateful that they just have a place, a secure place, and food and all of the basics. And then, of course, we provide all the other things as well, education. But many of them coming from situations where all they had to eat maybe was tortilla with salt on it, or maybe a chili or something on a tortilla. Yeah. And seriously, people think that's baloney, but it's not. It's true. And our kids, that's what makes a difference of whether they are successful in the Casa Hogar and in life later on. If they are grateful, if they have that feeling of being grateful rather than, say, resentment, if you can replace resentment and anger with being grateful for what they have and where they are and the potential, that can make a tremendous difference. The other thing that I see with our kids, and that maybe might have affected your kids, because and it would affect, I think, in the sports in general, is resilience. Did that make a difference?
Oh, absolutely. And I think the resiliency came from a perspective change. I think when you have a purpose and you have a positive perspective of your life and where you want to go with your life, your performance in all areas enhances, because you have that drive, you have that vision, and you have the goals at the forefront of your brain.
Yeah. We've tried, when I speak at churches or Rotary groups or different organizations, I try to encourage people, bring a group down, just bring a group down and see what's going on, because it will change your life. And we've probably had over the years, I don't know, maybe 600-700 minimum people. I don't know, it may even be a lot more than that have come down, as part of a volunteer group, a look and see group, a mission group, a training group, whatever it might be, and spending a week at the Casa Hogar with the kids. It did, I would say that, a lot of the work that we've done, and I think about the children that we've benefited over the years, maybe up to 1,000 different ones in different ways. But I look at the other people outside of Mexico, the people from the U.S., from, the different parts of different states, different churches, different organizations, Canada as well. And we've even had a group from Europe that come, and their lives are changed too. So I feel like that, if you have a chance, if people, and this is what I tell people, if you have a chance to come down and see and have this feeling of what it's like to be part of something where lives are truly being changed. Yeah. And I think it's very, very important. And I've seen so many people pass through, and when they leave, in the end, honestly, I think the benefit is greater for the people that come, even than the kids that are there.
Well, I think one of the things that's important for people to know, what we're offering, if, a sports organization or a church group or a youth group or any group of people come down to Casa Hogar and visit, we now have the Wings of Hope leadership program. Yeah. And it kind of jumps into what are the characteristics that these children are being taught, and what are the things that Casa Hogar is doing to pour into the lives of these children. And we've kind of put that into a curriculum. So these trips now are intentionally marketed as life transformative trips to Casa Hogar.
Yeah, we just had a group, some young people that came down in the end of June. We also had visitors from the Japanese peace ship that were there in July. And I'm telling you, it's just amazing. The people, they leave, they have this experience, and there's tears, and they leave and they say, we are just so glad that we had this experience, and we will remember you, forever. And I just think it's so worthwhile. We have a group that will be coming down in November. Some of them have been before, and I know that they're so looking forward to it, because even though many of the children will have changed, it'll still be that sense of that experience,
Right.
that experience that you just
Well,
cannot even describe.
yeah. So Nancy, here's the reality. So it's been proven for 30 years that Casa Hogar is changing lives. And today we've talked about how Casa Hogar is also changing lives of those that come and visit.
Yeah.
So in order for Casa Hogar to continue doing this bifold work, what is the current situation at Casa Hogar, and how can we help support Casa Hogar so lives can be impacted in the years to come?
Well, I think the number one thing is to tell the story. I think we need people out there who will actually tell other people and present what we are doing. We are saving lives. We're rescuing children. We are changing lives. We are preventing trafficking. We are doing all of these things, and we're doing it not. We're not under without government help. We are without government help. We are not under the any organization that is providing funding for us. So we have to look for our donors. We have to look for people that have come and that see what we're doing and believe in what we're doing, and will say, yes, I will help to support this, whether it's $10 or $30 or $40 a month or whatever. I will help to sustain this because they believe in the operation. And we've had a kind of I'd say, since COVID kind of did a number on us, as well as a lot of other things. But since then, we've lost some of our supporters, people that have gotten maybe, older and sick or moved or whatever. So our base, we need to and I'm just being honest about it, we just need to rebuild our base of supporters and have people out there, young people, young, older people, churches, organizations, whatever, that will tell about what we're doing, because we're doing so much and we're changing so many lives and we're changing the world. We just need people to come alongside of us and help us to continue to make this happen.
And Nancy, one of the things that we're doing right now as an organization is the Wings of Hope program. Will you kind of explain what the Wings of Hope program is exactly?
Well, this is the idea that, what we're trying to do with our young people are to provide wings of hope where they can actually go out and they can rise to, become someone, have a decent life, and their lives are changed. They're secure. They have a career, and they move out into the world, and they can be part of the changing of the world as well in a positive way. But the Wings of Hope is a program that the idea is sustainability. We need to know. Right now, we kind of live month to month, what we can get in each month. We need to try to develop, I think, it's one of the goals, maybe, 500, 600, 700 people throughout that would be willing to commit to, say, $40 a month or whatever it is. Any amount is good, but to make it where we know that every month that we're going to have a certain amount of money coming in and that we can continue with our program. So Wings of Hope is more of a sustainability program so that we can try to become sustainable financially for the next 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. So those kids that are there right now, this new generation that's there in the Casa Hogar, we know that we can take them all the way through, because it's been actually, it's been difficult. I know all nonprofits are difficult and everybody has their favorites and everybody has, what they give to, but we're struggling because we have to deal with bureaucracy, legality, crime, threats. My house has been, I've been threatened to have my house burned down because we stand strong and we protect our children. And So, we're going through a lot and we
Oh,
need people to help.
yes. And one of the most beautiful things is when you donate to Casa Hogar Los Angelitos, 100% of your donation goes to help the children.
Yeah.
There's no big CEO at the top getting paid big money,
No.
is there, Nancy?
No. No. That's kind of funny.
Yes.
I'm
Well,
big,
hey,
but no.
well, thank you, Nancy. Thanks again for a great time, and thank you
Oh,
for
Kevin,
going with the
I love you.
flow.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for, just, hitting me. Actually, these are all great questions. And I wish we could talk for another 2 or 3 hours. Maybe let's get back together and say some more. I have some more stories I'd like to tell.
Well, and that's why I'm so thankful that we're doing the Wings of Hope podcast, is because there are amazing stories, and we're going to be exploring them in the next few months. So,
Yeah.
Nancy, I'll look forward to seeing you again
Yeah.
in a week.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Thank
All
you
right,
very
take
much.
care.
We'll talk to you in a week.
Okay.
Okay.